being able to, we've been doing holistic wellness, just being able to understand our mental wellness, understanding our spiritual wellness, and also our physical wellness. But much of what we have done is just being able to understand our mental wellness. So today, being that our children at home, I want us to talk about understanding mental wellness with our youth. And youth, I'll go back all the way to teenagers. So how can I be able to help my child to maintain a good mental health? Remember, although sometimes we look at mental health and imagine that these are things that will only affect adults, many of the adults' challenges, mental health issues, begin when someone is young. So if a child has gone through abuse, they have been neglected, or they have been gone through any emotional pain, the challenge is that with time, they start developing mental health issues. Some will get depressed, others might even get anxiety and panic attacks. But the challenge is most of the times as parents, we are not able to know. We are also living at a time when, allow me maybe to address this more on my African parent. We don't want children to express themselves. So when we find maybe a child is sad and they are not talking, we bash out on them. And remember, maybe that child may be going through emotions. And of course, when I am talking like this, I know I am a victim. I have been there with my children sometimes. And at times, you're not able to really get to their emotions and understand why is this child behaving the way they are behaving. Maybe let me give an example of a time my daughter was going through bullying in school. And she would every time come in the evening sad. And every time, I think you just open the door for her, she's getting in, and you realize that she's either crying or very sad. And sometimes when children do that, and I'm talking about 10 years, 11, 13, or 12, when children do this, most of the times parents, we are not able to address them, as sometimes we bash them. So of course, on a few occasions I was able to follow up, and that is how I got to know that she was getting bullied by other students in class, and it was getting so bad that her grades had really dropped because of the pain that she was going through every other day, and sometimes even just being bullied in the transport buses that they go to school with. So if we are not present to just be able to see the emotions going through in the life of our children, sometimes we may not be able to know. Another way that sometimes as parents, we may bring so much pressure that would cause stress and depression on children, it's when we put pressure on them to perform. So remember performance in school, and I know this may not come out very well to many parents maybe. Many of us, we are not all smart. I mean, we are not all, not really smart, but we are not all enrolled the same in terms of IQ. We are all not the same in terms of IQ. So all of us are not A students. That is the truth. We may, yes, performance is there, and you expect, of course, your child to pass the exams just like every other child who has been taught in class. But the truth is that there is always one that will excel better than everyone else, because we have not been enrolled the same. Now, and this one is on academic performance. Now, when we put all the way to describe a child, whether they are successful in school or not, in terms of the performance and how they perform in mathematics, how they speak English, and how they passed in geography, and how they did in history. So we have different abilities. There are some children who have been endowed in the area of sports. Someone is good in arts, another one is good in music, another one is good in games and athletics. The child who is good in those areas may not be very good in academics, and I'm not saying that they can't, but that is how we have been endowed. Now, when you force your child to perform, you put pressure on them, and what happens is that they start trying to be somebody they are not. So you're forcing your child to take a different identity from who they are, and that one causes mental stress on a child a lot. And many people, many children, even now, by the time the child is getting into teenage, this is mostly what will cause identity crisis, because by the time they are getting to 12 years, they did not have an opportunity of identifying who they are. It was every other time maybe being compared to the cousin, to the girl who performs in class, to the neighbor, and the child is confused. Who exactly am I supposed to be? So those things will cause mental stress on children. I am not saying that we don't encourage our children to perform, but it is good to understand the ability of your young person, so that you build that talent, you build that ability, you build that what they are able to do and what they do well. So once you have been able to identify, then you can enhance it, instead of forcing them to be somebody they are not. The first thing that is affected is the self-worth of that child. And one of the areas that causes our mental wellness to be affected the most, it is when our identity is affected. So if I do not know who I am, if I don't understand if I don't appreciate myself, if I don't feel good enough, every time maybe I'm being criticized because of my looks, I'm criticized because of how I talk, I am criticized because of my performance, I am criticized maybe because I cannot be able to put on clothes the way everybody else does. All those things affect identity of a child. And the moment the identity has been affected, what happens by the time this child reaches teenage is that they start taking in an identity that is destructive. They will look for something to do that is going to make them stand out. I know this will be a little bit interesting, but a child who is suffering identity crisis or a mental disturbance is the one that mostly will get into drug and substance abuse. It is an identity they are seeking. They are seeking, as they become defiant to parents and teachers, it is an identity they are trying to achieve for themselves. Again, you may see them wearing very funny designs and wears, or if it's a girl, they want to dress up skimpy, they want to dress up, put a lot of makeup. They are still looking for this identity. So by dressing that way, that is what gives them identity, because they did not develop their identity early enough because of maybe the comparisons that were happening, or negligence, or nobody was there to just be able to encourage them be who they are. So what happens is that that child is going to be affected greatly in terms of who they are and how they receive themselves as a person. So they pick this identity, which is defiant of society, just to be able to feel comfortable. So one of the challenges that many young people or youth and teenagers get into is that one of identity crisis, which comes a lot attached to their mental status because of how, when they are growing up, how they were encouraged. So how can I be able to encourage my child to talk more about their feelings, about their emotions, about their thoughts? Now, of course, as an adult, you need to help the child understand that it is okay to feel sad. It is okay to feel stressed. That being stressed is normal. But when we, as adults, we do not put an environment where people speak about their emotions freely, what happens is that, of course, those emotions for the children are going to be suppressed. And we know one of the ways of making mental issues or mental issues get to this level that is affecting our lives is when we suppress emotional pain. Any suppressed emotional pain is going to cause a mental health issue. When we go through loss and grief and we do not handle that loss, we don't talk about it, we don't even look for help, that is going to cause a mental health issue. When someone goes through any form of abuse, be it emotional, physical, sexual, even the bullying that is happening today on our social media, if somebody goes through that point of abuse and those emotions are not handled, they can cause mental health issues. So we can set up an environment where our children can be able to talk freely of what they are going through. When they are worried, we can be able to also tell them that it is normal to feel worried. But sometimes our setup wants to tell our children that you need to be strong. So even when you are going through a painful experience, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to express emotional breakdown. That is wrong. Even again, overly expressing those emotions that the child is crying throughout, or they are ever moody, or they are ever sad, again, that is an extreme. So if we can be able to put an environment where our children can be able to talk about what is happening to them. We've had situations, young people are refusing to go back to schools, especially the secondary schools that are boarding. So a child gets to Form 1, and when they get to school, they don't want to go back when they open. And sometimes the way we react is we become very mad at them. And of course, the first reaction is they want to discontinue school. But it is good to listen. Is this child being bullied in any way? Our schools nowadays, there is a lot happening. Children are being forced to use drugs. Children are being forced into sexual issues like homosexuality and gayism. Others are being recruited into things that they may not want to be part of. So it is good to listen. Why is this child, apart from just thinking that they are becoming defiant, why is it that they don't want to go to school? And I know this is a challenge many parents, of course, go through, and sometimes the way we react makes it worse. Another challenge may be that they may be having issues, even interacting with other students. They may be having an issue with a teacher. And I'm not saying that we support children who are defiant. I am only saying we can be able to listen to them. So how do we get support? Now, if you don't know how and what to do, if you realize your child is very sad all the time, they are closing down, they are closing themselves in the room all the time, they don't want to talk, or maybe they are becoming defiant in any way, and maybe a child has been doing very well and all of a sudden now they are becoming very defiant, it is good, if you don't know how to reach out to them, it is good to seek help from a counselor, a trained counselor. You can also look for help from a psychologist. So once you are able to do that, then you will be able to reach into their hearts and be able to know what is exactly this that is causing this drastic change. Our children also, or the youth, are also being, some of them are being molested even by relatives, close relatives. Sometimes people, we push them to stay with. And I know anytime I talk about children, I want to talk about the sleepovers. The way we want children to go to the village and stay with their grandparents and their uncles, But sometimes because there is no supervision of who is in charge and who this child should trust, children go there and I'm not talking children, I'm talking about preteens, teens and youth. You find some get molested in those places. Some of them get sexually abused. Others will even get, things will happen to them that would not have happened had they not taken care of them. So sometimes they will come and they are hurting. Some have been raped by relatives, people we released them to. So the child may come looking very sad. Now, if we are not able to reach out to their heart, we will not know the pain they are going through. Other mental issues, it is, you may be having even a domestic worker at home or living with a relative who is molesting your child and you may not know. And sometimes the child may start becoming withdrawn, or they may start regressing. Regressing is doing things they had stopped doing. Like children who are teenagers who bedwet, teenagers becoming very aggressive, and even when they answer questions, they are answering when they are very angry. That is an indicator that this child may be going through some mental issues that may be affecting them. So, of course, emphasize, tell the child, keep speaking to your children and allowing them to know that they are not alone. They can trust you. I know I work with the youth, and I know if there is something, if there is an area the young people are very sensitive on, is the area of trust. Many young people are not able to trust us as parents, as caregivers, and even youth workers, because sometimes when young people open up to us, I don't know why we feel comfortable to just go talk about it to other people. Now, what happens when a young person shares something and you go share with other people and they hear about it, what happens is they lose trust. Just like an adult. If you shared something that is secretive, you shared something personal, very sensitive, and you find it spread along on everyone in the family, aunties, uncles, cousins, everybody knows about it. Of course, it is hurting. And what they will do, they will not tell you, but they will also not open up to you again. So those things will cause, now the child is going to develop mistrust with the parent or the caregiver or the youth worker or the teacher. And instead of now sharing their issues, they will keep them to themselves. Now what happens is, anytime evil loves seclusion. Evil loves seclusion. When you are secluded, you can easily be introduced to all manner of things. You can easily be introduced to things that you never thought you would ever find yourself in. So what happens is, if all the time you find yourself, you're not able to open up and you're always closed, it is, you are an easy target to be attacked. You are an easy target because sometimes even in schools you find children who mostly walk alone are the ones that the bullies target. They are the ones that those people who want to introduce funny behavior to them, they are the ones who are targeted because you are not able to express yourself well. And of course, sometimes now this comes with mistrust when you don't have trust for anyone. So it is good to emphasize to the child to be ready to talk. But when they talk to us, we should be able to be confidential. We understand that this information, it is not information to go sharing with everyone else. Look at a scenario where maybe your daughter or son comes and tells you that they were sexually molested by maybe a family member. And now this information is taken to the family meeting and it is discussed by everyone. What have you done to your child? Of course, one, you've exposed them, you have shamed them, you have made them now be labeled. Sometimes also they may even be hated. So we escalate the mental pain, the emotional pain, and definitely then the emotional, the mental health issues will be escalated because we expose them badly. So some of the challenges that young people may be going through mentally are things like depression. Depression, we said it is extreme sadness that goes beyond 2 weeks. Extreme sadness that goes beyond 2 weeks. Sorry. So the person is so sad, they are hopeless, they are becoming suicidal, they want to be isolated. Those are the kind of signs that we can be able to look at. Then there is anxiety. Anxiety is a range of anxiety disorders, but maybe just to explain, it is extreme fear, staying with extreme fear, and sometimes even getting panic attacks. Panic attacks sometimes can present themselves in high palpitations of the heart, sweating, and extreme headache. And when it is extreme, it can also come with even fainting. So anxiety disorders, that comes when maybe a child has gone through some traumatic experiences and they have never been handled, or painful emotional situations, but they have never been addressed. So the child just handles them alone. So they develop anxiety, which is closely associated with extreme fear. Then, of course, there is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and then there is conduct. Now, the issue of drug and substance abuse, extreme dressings, becoming overly defiant to parents and teachers. Sometimes the child is just acting out. There's so much happening within, so they look for these activities that will help them act out. So sometimes those defiant behavior should be indicators to just help us to look into our children and try to help them. And I'm talking about children all the way to 18 years. Then there is eating disorders. The child may struggle with overeating or undereating. So they can struggle with overeating or undereating or eating the wrong things. So the child may just want to be on sweet things, sodas, juices, things like just taking things that are maybe sweet and taking them in excess, which now will not only affect their mental wellness, but it is also going to affect their physical wellness. So what happens is the child will also start getting sick. We are having teenagers today who are struggling with type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes mostly is caused by lifestyle living, out the way we live, the food we eat, how we our activity levels. And remember, these are the same young people who will stay on the computers and the phones for hours without doing any activity. So all those things are contributing to diabetes among the youth. Then there is hypertension, which might be contributed, one, by extreme stress, and it will also be contributed by the diet. When you use highly processed foods, too much sugar, sugary foods, all those things will have an effect on our children. So again, those are eating disorders. So we said overeating, undereating, or eating foods that are not healthy, because they are foods that are helping me to deal with my emotions. So those are some of the mental health issues that our children will be struggling with. So how can we be able to have, what are some of the signs? How can I be able to know that my child is struggling mentally? What are some of the telltale signs that I can be able to tell this young person or the youth or the teenager is going through a painful experience, or they're going through some mental health issues? So sadness, a lot of times. So somebody being sad for a long time, then there is school dropout or performance going down. So maybe the child was attaining like a B plus, and the next term they are coming with a C or a C minus. That is a great indicator that something is wrong. Another one is, of course, all the time the child being worried and having fears or panic attacks. Sometimes it can even be getting hallucinations and nightmares at night. All the time complaining about aches, pain, body pains, joint pains, back pains, headache. So every time they want this medicine for headache, this medicine for joint. So those extreme pains and aches. Then there is loss of appetite or becoming picky on food. There is a problem fitting in at school or getting along with other children. When the child is not able to relate with other children in a good way, or they're becoming very aggressive, angry, violent behavior. They have sleeping patterns, challenges with sleeping. Then the other issue is, of course, simming down and feeling hopeless all the time, having trouble coping with everyday activities. Like when they are given even homework, just maybe 20 questions, and they are complaining that this is too much work, although that can also be caused by excess use of the screen. When a young person remains on the screen for a long time, they may have challenges with work or just challenges with being able to perform in school. Then, of course, there is trouble eating. We've talked about that. And sleep. That is excess sleep and undersleeping. A young person up to the age of at least at 12 should be able to sleep at most 10 hours up to 12 years. From 12 all the way to 18, you should have a minimum of 7 hours sleep every day. If you're not able to have that amount of sleep, of course you're going to underperform. Most of the time you'll be having fatigue. Most of the time you'll be doing things but really not performing the way you ought to. So of course there will be challenges with at home and in school, avoiding social gatherings. There is also antisocial behavior, and antisocial behavior we are talking about fighting, stealing, in getting involved in drug and substance abuse, being engaged in irresponsible sexual behavior. All these things are indicators that the child may be suffering from some mental health issues. So there is being anxious about weight or physical appearance, being overly concerned about how they look and how they handle their issues. So how can I be able then to help this young person? What are some of the things that an adult can do to help the young person? One, have an open conversation. We said have open conversations at home. The second one is if you're not able to really reach out to them, seek professional help. If a child, if you know at home you've gone through some painful experiences, maybe a divorce or maybe death of a loved one like a father or a mother to this child, or even loss of a brother or a sister, it is important that that child goes through loss and grief counseling. I know sometimes we don't take it very urgent, but loss of a loved one affects a child just like it affects an adult. So they also require to be taken through counseling, loss and grief counseling. Sometimes maybe we don't know where to start, but I believe we now have counselors who have been trained to manage loss and grief among children. But the truth is, if loss has happened at home and we have not done anything about it, the truth is that that child will have mental health issues. And those of us who are in church, of course, the way we tell our children that God has taken the loved one. Now, the perception the child will have about God is that God is not a good God. This God who takes away my father is not a good God. So they will start being angry with God. So it is good to put it clear that death came because of sin. It's not God who kills people. Allow me to say this and say it a little bit with emphasis, that God does not kill people. God does not bring diseases. I know we also want to tell people that all things work together for good. Yes, things work together, but God does not bring death so that he works good. It is only that he changes painful situations that happen to us for our good. But it is not those bad things that happen to us that are good. So it is important to put it clear so that our children also will not hate God. Because now when we go through hard times, we know that the only place we can be able to find hope during hard situations like those of loss, it is being able to lean on this power that is above us. And that power is only the power of God. Now, when this power that I am supposed to lean on, I am looking at him as the one who killed my loved one, now I will not be able to go to him for solace and help and hope. So again, also the statements we make about death at home, it is important not to put them. Then there is this statement also that we tell young children or youth or teenagers. We tell the people, the child, my father or your mother went to heaven. Now, this child knows that I am getting saved so that I can be able to get to heaven. So the child losing a loved one, being separated from a loved one, is a painful experience. So the child will not be interested with this God who kills the mother when they need them the most. So it's important to explain death for what it really is to the child, so that the child can be able to understand death and also still lean on God for help and support. The other thing is if your child is not a performer in school, if they are not working, if they are not working very hard, as in their results are not as good as you would have wanted them, please avoid comparison. Avoid comparing your child with another, because what that does, it crushes the very personality of your child. So you're simply trying to tell this child to drop who they are as a person and pick another personality. We know it is not possible. Even adults don't like being compared. I know parents, we do this a lot, but even us as parents, as adults, as teachers, as pastors and children workers and youth workers, we don't like being compared. So the same way we don't like it, we should not compare our children. No, so putting too much pressure on a child to perform can crush their emotional status. And this one depends with the personality of a child. There is one that is going to be put pressure, like a child who is a choleric. They are going to take that positively and they are going to work towards it. You criticize a child who is a phlegmatic, and the next thing they will still look at themselves and see themselves as worthless, and the next thing that we'll be working with is suicide. If a child has mentioned issues of feeling suicidal, please don't just stay with them at home. Sometimes we tell them, go and kill yourself if you want. That is even worsening the situation. So please, if you hear any suicidal connotations in the conversations of your child, seek professional help, because they kill themselves. We have seen many young people killing themselves. We have seen young people dying of suicide. We don't want another one happening because we neglected a telltale sign that was there and glaring at us. Now, the next one is, of course, if there is pain in the family, especially domestic violence, and domestic violence can be both physical or emotional. If as parents there has been fights and disagreements between parents, it is important that the children are taken through counseling. The only challenge we do as parents is that we want to make children choose the direction or who they will support. That is very hard. As much as you may think that you are the better parent than the other parent, this is the father to this child. This is the mother to this child. So if we can be able to separate our fights between husband and wife from the children, we will make them healthier. But the moment now we are having issues with our spouses and we are mixing it with the children, or sometimes even discussing those disagreements, these are adults. These are people who are 50, 40 years, 35 years and above. You are an adult. I'm sorry, the child's mind, the child's brain has not developed to your level. So sometimes discussing these things with a child is doing them a disservice, because they don't have the mental capacity to handle what you are explaining, regardless of how justified you are. If there are differences that are happening at home, kindly do not discuss them before the children. Do not even discuss what is happening between your spouse and you with your child. We also have parents who will go and they are sharing all the financial challenges they are going through with their children. Oh, my job is not doing well. We have not even paid rent. I don't know where you are going to get food today. The simple thing that you are putting in your child as you are discussing that is hopelessness. Remember, a child all the way up to 18 is totally dependent on a parent. Maybe a 17, 18-year-old has matured a little bit. But before then, the moment they see the pillar of the parent broken, you are telling them there is no need to continue living. So when we go and we are adults who are more mature, who are more understanding, who can be able to navigate our ways. But the child, when you tell them, they know nowhere else to navigate. They only look upon you. So when you share these things with them as blank as they are, and I'm not saying you don't tell them things are not working, but please let them not be the ones who nurse your pain. Don't allow yourself to share your pain with your child, because their mental capacity has not developed enough to be able to manage what you're sharing with them. So you are overburdening them. I have sat with students from school and someone tells you, I don't want to stay in school because I don't know whether when I am school, who is taking care of my mother.